In this segment, we're going to talk about continuous school improvement at all levels in Valley View School District. So if you look at this image, you can see that there are three different levels and teams that work within Valley View School District. We have the district impact team, the building impact team, and then department grade level PLCs. As we look at this graphic, I actually prefer to look from right to left. As most of you are teachers in your building, you'll notice that at the PLC level, there are items that set direction, monitor and report our impact, help us to assess and improve on what we're doing with our students. And then finally, how are we listening and learning to our community and the needs of our learners? So if you could take a moment and just look at this and to see how each level progresses. So again, at the PLC level, with unit lesson plans, if we just look at setting direction, those unit plans help to inform the school improvement plan at the BIT level. And then moving from the building impact team level to the district impact team level, we would really be looking at the strategic plan to set that direction. So this graphic really just illustrates the different levels and the roles that each plays in the Valley View School District continuous improvement system. Let's dive a bit more deeply into the building impact team, since that's what each of you is a member of. So, as we think back also to our collective efficacy, we know that we need to have a continuous focus. I'll be working towards a similar goal in a similar way, but providing that feedback and kind of orienting ourselves around what's working and even what's not working within our buildings. So, the building impact team is going to have that purpose. Some of the buildings have focused on a content area or a specific standard or some skills that they would like to improve for their students. So there you have your purpose. Over the last 2 years, a lot of BIT teams have also really looked at the roles and responsibilities within the group members. So for instance, you may be asked to take a role during your BIT team meeting. Maybe you're going to be an action prompter and really summarizing and asking for like, okay, so what are we going to do from this conversation? What's our actionable work that we need to accomplish from this? From that, then, obviously, we're going to be setting goals. We need to have a way in which we're finding out, are we having an impact? If we have a target with our students, are we making progress towards that? Why or why not? How often do we need to check in on this? And do we have evidence that the changes in teacher practice are having an impact on student outcomes? We also need to think about how frequently we're checking in. If we're checking in too frequently, then we may not be getting the data that we need. And how do we know that the data we're collecting truly matches the goals that we have? So this is really part of the meat of the process, is to really look at what's your purpose and how do we know we are having that impact? And this definitely takes time and is what the whole continuous improvement cycle is about. Now, if we look back for just a moment, back to our continuous improvement graphic at each level, we really had talked about that department grade level PLC team level. This is where our continuous improvement process moved last year. Teams, departments at the building were setting their own goal and moving through the continuous improvement process, monitoring their impact and really digging into what's going to be the biggest impact on our student learning. Over the past few years, we really have tried to focus on this process because we know that this process is what is that bridge between what is our vision for Valley View and our vision for our students, and what are we actually taking action on and having an impact on for our learners. If you haven't already seen an image very similar to this, you'll begin to see it quite often. It is a graphic that captures the school improvement cycle, timeline, and steps that you'll be leading over the long term. It is closely aligned with Illinois' Rising Star process, so many of you are already doing pieces of this cycle, but it may not be consistent throughout your entire building system. Let's take a look at each segment somewhat in isolation. So, the first piece of this pie is the yellow portion. This is from summer to fall, cycle one. So, this is where you're going to look at your data summary, review your targets, your greatest area of need, indicators, and measures that were set on your smart tree from the previous year. Then in late July, you should have your IAR data. We can finalize our indicators, measures, targets, and begin to action plan. So what actions will we take to make sure that we are impacting student outcome? Once you've created action plans with your BIT team, now it's time to implement them in the do implement phase of September and October. So this is where you make the adjustments in your teacher practice to see if they're having an impact on your student outcomes. You'll review some of this information with your BIT team in late October. After your BIT team meeting in October, we'll enter into the study, act and report, and adjustment phase of our process. So this is where you're going to gather the data of your student outcomes, act on any findings that you have, make any adjustments. If things are working well, stick with it. If it's not working well, what are some adjustments that you can make to make sure your student outcome data is on track? Now that we've reached February, your BIT team will meet once again to talk about your first plan, do, study, act cycle. Are there any adjustments that need to be made? Do we need to make amendments to our action plan, look at our evidence, and decide, are we on track to meet the goals that we've set for our students and for ourselves? If it was decided that adjustments need to be made to our action plans during February and March, we will implement these new changes and continue to study the student outcome data. You're now entering the final months of the school year. We are in cycle three from winter to spring, and we are starting to look at the outcome data and predict our results. How did our students do on the IAR test? Were we able to make the progress that we wanted for the school year? In May, your BITS will meet for another full day to reflect on this plan, do, study, act process and start to prepare for receiving student data in the summer. Now that we have looked at the continuous improvement cycle, we will move on to thinking about SMART goals. Please read the Power of the SMART Goals excerpts that are linked on the Google site and take notes on the graphic organizer that is provided.